Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and video game news. Today is Friday, July 7th. Now, either Yu-Gi-Oh! Has gotten rid of the pop-up notifications every time you log in, or I had already logged in once for today, or I just clicked through it. So I had to actually click on the notification things to see there's some rules here around the World Championship Finals that they're posting. I don't think I qualified, but whatever. There is a new selection pack, so we'll look at that. It's going to be, should be available now. And there's a new secret pack, the Trap in the Wicked Castle. So if we get that, we need to also focus on that. It would be kind of nice, frankly, if going forward you do just get a indicator, a little red dot if there's a notification, and it doesn't just pop up in front of you, although that really undercuts their apparent thought that everybody needs to see every notification. I also see that the reaction emojis, the hearts, buttons, and several other little reaction things are back on YouTube chat. So apparently they tested it for a while and then they untested it, and now it's back, and they've actually announced that it's a new thing, so it seems like it is now going to be permanent. What does that really do for a content creator? I don't know. Like, if anything, it seems like it may be straight up just a placebo. I don't know if it gives any kind of interactions metric that would make a live stream more likely to be recommended. It doesn't seem like it puts anything in the chat log. It doesn't seem like anybody who is the content creator can actually even see it. So, yeah. Unless there is just hearts popping up on my video for people who are watching it live, which maybe that's happening, but that would just make a worst case scenario for everybody. That would make the video worse for everybody, and it doesn't seem like there's even a way to turn off these reactions if that was the case. So yeah, it kind of seems like it's just straight up a placebo for people who want to click buttons and interact more, and fine, I suppose. If this is the YouTube equivalent of an elevator door close button, where notoriously a significant percentage of door close buttons on elevators have been programmed to do nothing or not connected to anything in the first place, I guess that's fine. I'm still doing my experiment by not putting any chat decorum, chat rules as the first comment. Inherently, that means there's one less comment on my videos, which means it will get less recommended. So I imagine I can't stick with that idea, but we'll see if we possibly get more engagement by not having somewhat restrictive rules and decorum posted. Although, in all fairness, I probably am just getting less engagement in the chat because it's summer and it's just a timing thing. Speaking of timing things, I was mostly busy yesterday, but I did get to make yet another 2-hour video on Harry Potter Magic Awakens. It's pretty obvious the game is not going to replace Yu-Gi-Oh! The deck size in Magic Awakens is 8 cards. You don't run out of cards. They respawn. The cards are really just paper charms, is what they're called. And the charms just represent spells you cast. And so really the game is more of a very simplistic RPG game without any open world element that I've seen so far in 4 hours. Although I am still very much in the tutorial track. It took 3 hours for them to even get to the point where they showed me the storefront, where they would potentially want you to buy more cards. But there's only, it seems, 75 cards in the entire collection, and as you get more cards, you then will upgrade the cards, and I assume the upgrades go to at least level 9, if not infinitely. And the card draw mechanic, when using gold and silver keys, there's so many currencies, like 6 or 7 different currencies in the game, so not really child friendly, and definitely pay to win. But instead of having a pity timer where you get new cards the more you don't get new cards, it has what I have dubbed a screw you counter on it, where you're guaranteed new cards when you use 1 key the first time, but then you have to use 2 keys, and you just have to use two keys the next time you want to draw with gold or silver keys. And that just goes up and up to like 20 or 30. So at some point in the long run, you're going to have 20 or 30 keys just to get any new cards at all. The prices goes up. Alright, so this is not available until July 12th. And this is not available until July 12th. They're doing the right thing by telling me early, but that does lead to some slight confusion, as I thought they would have been there already as far as the new card packs. So yeah, if anything, I imagine I'm going to turn Yu-Gi-Oh! Into a short series, and then once we've exhausted, not Yu-Gi-Oh! Harry Potter Magic Awakens into a short series, and once I've hit the point where there is only player versus player content left, or there's just a nice dividing line where there's not going to be anything tutorializing new single player content, then I'll probably give up. There is some real weirdness, and I guess that explains why nobody's really talking about Magic Awakens at this point, in that they have these little hallways and they have a central corridor with the moving stairs in Hogwarts, and they want you to kind of walk around in those areas, but then all it really does is lead you to a room that leads you to a duel, a fight with the card game. It does have an odd kind of Kingdom Hearts feel to it later on. I got that vibe. It looked like there was some, like, you could go behind a student's desk, or you could find a little corner that people are less likely to search. But there was nothing there for the first 2 hours. Well, eventually I get to a point, and there are things there. There are chests and jars you can use. Or you can break to find little materials. So again, it feels like almost a dungeon crawler with very poorly and very minimal numbers of poorly designed and minimal numbers of dungeons. I half expect at some point you are just going to run into random encounters. The other problem, though, is while it does do a real nice thing of letting you relive some of the events of the past, since Magic Awakens takes place after the events of Harry Potter, and so at one point they do have you fighting the troll in the bathroom, and then they have you play as Dumbledore and fight Voldemort even. And in the fight with Voldemort, though, it really just highlights the absolute nonsense that is their gameplay mechanic, in that you just have these 8 cards that can spawn real minions on the field that then will just crawl and creep. It's almost like a mini attempt at something like Dota. But yeah, you summon these minions, and that's half your spells, and they just crawl and creep or buff each other, and then somebody crawls and creeps towards the enemy, and it just floods the entirety of the field with nonsense, on top of the other spells doing environmental effects, which also just visually floods the whole field with nonsense. There's basically no strategy in the game at all. It's just a case of I should probably just surrender at this point. They've negated every single one of my tricks. Yeah. There's no strategy in it. It is just really a random action game, action RPG type game, but not even good on that aspect. And generally, I would think it would have been smarter and better if they had just gotten rid of the hallways and just had static visual novel cutscenes in which characters talk to each other. Feels like on the mobile version of the game in particular that would make a lot of sense. And so you would just have a cutscene with a conversation that would go into a duel, then you would have a cutscene with a conversation, and then that would go into a duel, back and forth, back and forth. There should be one static image that is just kind of a map, like that magical map I think they had. There's a couple of magical maps in Harry Potter, come to think of it. I'm actually extremely surprised by how much I even remember of Harry Potter. But yeah, it would make a lot of sense if your main screen was just a map and you clicked on specific icons and it took you to specific areas for different kinds of duels, versus player versus event, versus player, those different events. That's what you would typically expect for a game like this, because at the core of it, it is trying to be one of those mobile gacha games where you're going to try and convince the whales to buy all the cards and spend a lot of money on it. There is a heavy emphasis in Magic Awakened on Hermione, which, in fairness, I think Hermione really should be the protagonist of the whole Harry Potter series, particularly looking at it from the perspective of the movies and not having read the book. Harry Potter just doesn't really come off as being that wizardry and that magical, and he really just comes off as, oh, he was the lucky one. So yeah, if somehow I magically was in charge of writing a sequel to Harry Potter, I would have Hermione take that magical time rewinding device she had, or find some other magical time rewinding device, have her go back in time and save Harry Potter's parents, and then defeat Voldemort, I guess, at that point. And then you could have a reboot of the whole timeline, at which the younger Hermione from the original timeline becomes the central figure and central hero. The thought there being that the threat of Voldemort kept some other threat at bay, and as soon as Voldemort was eliminated, another threat rose to power. And then you have Hermione as a wizard or witch, whatever they call her. I still think they should all be called wizards, regardless of gender. Have her the main protagonist. Then you have Ron Weasley and Harry Potter as friends / potential romantic interests, or you straight up eliminate Harry Potter completely and he's just this awkward, goofy student that is at Hogwarts but is nothing particularly special, instead of being the chosen one. But yeah, as far as Magic Awakened, the artwork and the story descriptions, which is depicted very poorly on the charm cards, is very heavily focused around Hermione. And perhaps that's just because Hermione cast most of the spells throughout the entire series. But yeah, I don't think Harry Potter Magic Awakened is a game that I could stick with. And it's not a game I think I particularly would want to stick with. One of the things that kills it, and this is just a technical reason, is that to record it with OBS, I'm having to do a full display capture. It's just not programmed to use any kind of like DirectX rendering or anything like that, it seems, or it's just not programmed right. It's capturing all the keystrokes, so the hotkey to start and stop recording doesn't work when it is full screen. So it's just making extra work in which I'm having to start a video, then put some silence in the front so I can get the video in to look right for the first frame, then start talking, then I have to go back and cut that first bit of silence at the front. And to start with the hotkeys, I have to hit the Windows key. So at the beginning of every recording, before I cut it out, I'm hitting Windows and then I'm hitting the hotkey, which is just bringing up Windows search. Which, yeah, that extra hassle is not worth it. And the mouse is also being trapped. Like for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel here, when I take the mouse cursor and go to the right, it just goes to the second screen just fine. There's nothing stopping that. The mouse is totally trapped within the frame of the Harry Potter Awakens. So I couldn't do the web peek by going to the right and moving the mouse, because I programmed it once the mouse gets to about right here on the second screen, it turns on the web peek. So my whole, almost all my systems would break if I was trying to live stream it, even if it was super popular. Now I am perhaps interested in Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy at some point, but I've almost certainly missed the bus on that. Nobody's really talking about that game anyway, so yeah. It does seem like it is just too little too late. There's also copyright concerns, although it does seem like the Harry Potter music is content ID'd. It doesn't seem like it really affects my videos for the first video. So, but I would point out in contrast, Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel has never had a content ID claim on its music. And certainly it wouldn't be reasonable to play Magic Awakens and stream it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with the music muted. We could do it, but it would be a hassle. They're doing everything in their power to stop me here. And question will just come down to how many more things can he do. Let's move this so it's over here. That way it's not pointing towards that. Playing that move was probably a mistake. Now would be the time to do some research. See. The hope is that this would let me just destroy this. That didn't work. We might very well be in a situation. Yeah, this one is unaffected because of this. So I should have done some more research. We may still win here. Suffice it to say, though, that I haven't really done anything else with Harry Potter, other than playing Harry Potter Magic Awakened, so I really don't have too much I can say. I'm hoping over the weekend to maybe make a little bit of progress, but I've also received in the mail those 3 Nintendo Switch games I purchased, so I also would like to potentially play through that. But the truth of it is, I need to finish the scheduling over the weekend. That is much higher priority. I need to finish scheduling videos that are on the old system so I can then start to work on the new system of a fully automated scheduling process. Unaffected by opponent's cards effects. So this card's not going to do anything anyways. Yeah, I need to over this weekend schedule videos, which is pretty much true for every weekend. I'm going to run into a problem, particularly now that I have videos showing up in different folders, in which I just have a lot more videos than I think I do, and I'm gonna eventually just end up having a full hard drive right when I don't need that to happen. So that was like a full reset, and I could have played a lot better if I had just not put that one trap card, this one, Tri-Brigade Revolt, on the field. Because now if I had that, I could put that on the field and summon my powerful character and banish this character with my powerful character's ability. I'm talking about Tri-Brigade Shrog, the ominous omen. Okay. So, probably the biggest news. There's not really a lot of news still, and if anything, it seems like I've seen at least GameDeveloper.com, if not also Video Games Chronicles, stretch to try and find some articles in the past couple days. Seems like we're in a summer slump, even though the Steam Summer Sale is going on. I guess there's just a line certain websites won't cross, in which they won't just straight up say, here's the games on Steam that are on sale, or here's a review of a game that we've talked about. Although, in fairness, GameDeveloper.com and Video Games Chronicle both don't really review that many games, or any games. I'm not sure if they review any. But real news, as far as real news goes, this is real news. There's an obituary here for the Beyond Good and Evil 2 creative director, Emile Morel. This veteran designer worked at Ubisoft for over 14 years. Now, Beyond Good and Evil 2 is abandoned, as far as I'm concerned, as a game. And both the first version of it and the second version that was shown, plus probably 3 or 4 other versions that were never shown externally, none of those have gone anywhere. This might have been a case, like, if you wanted to be extremely generous with Ubisoft, which I don't see a real reason why you would, that maybe this is why Beyond Good and Evil 2 has never officially been canceled, is that Ubisoft is just using it as a way of keeping people employed. I wonder how old this picture is. If he's been working at Ubisoft for 14 years, then this guy looks particularly young for, let's say he started even well, I guess if he started at Ubisoft at 18 and he worked there for 14 years, then that would only be 32 years old. But then you don't really expect 32-year-olds to die. But yeah, maybe that's why Good and Evil 2 is still around, is because there's just enough people at the... no, he died at the age of 40, so yeah. That seems to be a somewhat recent picture of him. So yeah. If anything, this could be a good opening for them to finally put to rest Beyond Good and Evil 2 as a concept, and just say, hey, we're not going to make a game called Beyond Good and Evil 2. If anything, it would make more sense to just remaster the original Beyond Good and Evil 1 and let people relish in the nostalgia with that. Maybe even in the remaster, if the story really needs some wrap up, you add just a small coda cutscene at the end. Since the most recent announced version of Beyond Good and Evil 2 was just going to straight up be a remake, a prequel to the story anyways, it's not like you're going to get any real progress in the story with a prequel anyways. See how this works. Ubisoft being in France is in a very weird position. France just passed a sweeping police can turn on phones and spy on people remotely spy bill. And France is in the middle of all these riots. And so either we are on the verge of seeing major crackdowns of major rioting, or more on the verge of potentially yet another French Revolution. Which that'd be interesting to see if that actually succeeded. But as a video game company, Ubisoft being involved in just being located in the same place as all of that just adds to more of the problems with Ubisoft in general. And Ubisoft already had a lot of problems in which its French employees, or at least some of them, didn't really want to work for Ubisoft anymore, and the Ubisoft manager, Yves Guillemot, didn't seem to really care. So it kind of feels like there was a major conflict between the upper management and the associate level employees. Meanwhile, the actual content and games that do come out from Ubisoft are just so far doing a good job of staying the same level of quality pretty much, but it's not breaking any grounds or doing anything new. It's just, let's make another Assassin's Creed game, let's remake Assassin's Creed Black Flag. There is a problem certainly with the idea of an Assassin's Creed Black Flag, in that Skull and Bones is also a Ubisoft project that's been long in development, and now Skull and Bones is going to be lapped effectively by a Black Flag remake potentially. Let's see. I don't think there's anything in the story that says how he died. So, whatever. As usual, you're not given a real answer in any obituary as far as how people die, which is, I always find that unsatisfactory. Like if you told me a 40-year-old died suddenly because he was doing ketamine or cocaine or something, I'd be like, okay, that seems reasonable. Like, it's not a good thing certainly, but it's somewhat reassuring that people who are young die, if they die for risky behavior that can be avoided. It's never satisfactory if somebody just dies because they tripped down the stairs or they had a sudden aneurysm, which often is the case, is that there is just no avoidable cause for death. And it certainly depends on age there too. If you tell me a 92-year-old dies of a heart attack or an aneurysm, I would say, okay, yeah, that's reassuring, that's believable that would happen at that age. But if you tell me a 22-year-old dies of a heart attack or aneurysm, that's a little more off-putting. Heck, even if you told me that the guy died because he was in the riots and got run over by a tank, at least that'd be information. Better to know in my mind than to have to speculate all the different scenarios. Anyways, moving on. Video Games Chronicles says Capcom is, quote, considering how to approach making a new Mega Man game. There have only been 3 main entries in the past 15 years. So this would be Mega Man 9 in 2008, Mega Man 10 in 2010, and Mega Man 11 in 2018. Which there definitely is something to that idea, in that Mega Man, as a kind of difficult platformer, is only going to appeal to a percentage of fans. That frustration platforming these days has been taken to extreme levels. I might as well just surrender the 2 elements deck. But yeah, so if Mega Man is going to try and catch up with that idea and continue down the idea of really frustrating platforming, then the game is going to get way more difficult than it probably should be. So if you eliminate the platforming for the most part, the 2D platforming, if they went 3D, I think that would probably be a big mistake. Although, you know, there's room for an attempt there at least. But if you eliminate the platforming, then you have just different bosses with different enemies. And at a certain point, a Mega Man game isn't too different from a Kirby game, in that Mega Man can copy other people's abilities and Kirby can copy other people's abilities. And so if there was perhaps a boss rush game where you were fighting a lot more of the enemies instead of just usually 9 or 8 enemies and getting their abilities. Yeah, when that newest Kirby game that I played might be the direction that they should consider going, is have smaller enemies in an open 3D environment as a Mega Man, defeat those smaller enemies and get either a limited number of shots as that type of enemy, or a weaker version of shots around that. Perhaps what you do is you establish like a wave beam, but the wave beam, it starts at level 1, and then when you defeat the boss that has a wave beam attack, it gives you a level 5 out of 10 version of the wave beam, and you get like an RPG amount of XP for each different type of attack, and then the attacks synergize over each other. So if you have a wave beam and an ice beam, it then turns into a wave ice beam, one that could be at like level 1 for the wave part and level 2 for the ice, combining. Of course, I'm not the biggest. I don't know if I've ever played any Mega Man game at all, so I'm probably not the person to ask as far as how you would make a new Mega Man game. But clearly, Capcom doesn't even know what to do with Mega Man. I think you also run into a problem here in that this art style is iconic, but this art style also just really does not work well for modern animation styles. And I don't know the best way to really address that. Like, I don't think you want to go straight Bomber Girls and turn Bomberman, who also was very kind of rounded, small or giant polygon character. You don't want to turn Bomberman into Bomber Girl, and you don't Bomber Girls, which were just anime kawaii characters. And same as with Mega Man, you don't want to turn Mega Man into an anime robot boy. But you also don't want to go insane with the details either and make Mega Man start looking closer to the Terminator or RoboCop. In the Dead Rising games, they have Mega Man outfits, costumes, that I believe his name is Frank West can wear. And that, I think, does a really great job of showing how terrible Mega Man's outfit looks in 3D and how silly it is. If you change Mega Man's appearance, you have to change the appearance of all the other robots. Or you maybe have the humans drastically drawn more realistically. And that changes the art style too. I think you really are just painted in a corner and you really have to use this art style. But I definitely would see some tweaks happen here. The blaster cannon, maybe try to get it to be smaller and go only halfway down this character's arm, and smaller gloves here. Get rid of the underwear on the outside look here. Perhaps you have a few lines of just like electrical circuitry around on the edges to give some details instead of what is very much just blobs of color. The helmet, I think you start to reduce that and get rid of that completely. There's almost a thought here to have like just a blue hair mohawk in the middle and eliminate the helmet, but I think what you probably would do is make this light blue thinner and cut this way higher so you are seeing tufts of hair. Or maybe you could even just put like headphones, some Beats by Dre over the hair of Mega Man with the blue ear cups and have just a line in the middle and then make it look a little bit more human. Then if you like, Mega Man is a robot, so he really shouldn't look that human, but I think it would make it more relatable if you did that. Maybe you get somewhat away from the giant anime eyes and make the rest of the face a little bit bigger. You could potentially also have all the enemy robots dressed like dorks and have him make fun of this. Just a general blue shirt and like something that felt like more of a blue shirt instead of blue skin or blue tight rubber around his clothing. It does kind of feel like he's just wearing a rubber suit, for lack of a better description. But that's just like the appearance. And really the appearance isn't the biggest deal there. The gameplay mechanic is the biggest deal. So they've got to figure out a good gameplay mechanic first, and then once they have something that plays really well and starts to make a lot of sense, then that will probably influence the artist to change the art or not change the art. Honestly, if they did no change to the art and it just played a lot differently, a lot better, and fans of Mega Man games could agree that it played better, which is going to be a big if, then leaving the art the same is fine by me. On a certain level, Mega Man feels like a game that's supposed to be for kids, but plays like a game that is a little too difficult for kids. So maybe you just dumb it down and make it a simpler, easier game overall. Oh, I guess it's My turn to lose here. Yeah. The Italian Video Game Awards happened. This was the first year I've ever even heard of this Italian Video Game Awards. The winners as far of this Video Games Chronicle list goes like this. For Best Italian Game, something called Terrorbane, which we've never heard of. Best Italian Debut Game is Venice 2089. Best Innovation is Saturnalia. Best Outstanding Italian Company is Ubisoft Milan. Yeah, my only chance of really winning here is if I irritate this guy and he surrenders. And then the Outstanding Individual Contributor was Christina Nava. I can barely read this text. Why is this so small? Let's adjust that. See if we can. Yeah, that only made it slightly better. As far as reading it, but slightly better is about as best as I'm gonna get. So yeah, I would say nothing particularly impressive around the Italian Video Game Awards. Any new award show, in my opinion, probably needs to give out 2 or 3 times as many awards as any other show. That way you can get your name out there. If Steam, for instance, was going to give out video awards other than their end of the year awards, and this is in part why the Steam awards have not really worked very well so far, as far as people caring about them, is that they're giving out 6 or 7 awards, where particularly in Steam's case, they have probably 16 to 18 different categories. It'd be fairly easy to either nominate or have awards coming out for each category of game, so that there would be 16 or 17 games on top of general Game of the Year type awards. They're doing a People's Choice Awards on Steam, which is probably a smart move, but it wouldn't hurt also if Valve just put out bestseller awards on top of that, which that's the easiest thing they could do without being blamed of being biased, is to say, we've got the metrics here and we're going to give the top selling game in each category a top seller or best seller of 2023 award. So for the top seller action game comes out, gets an award, then the top selling action adventure game, then top selling combat game, top selling shooter game, things like that. And you could certainly make rules for, since a lot of those games have multiple of those tags, to say whichever tag you set highest is the tag that we will use, or whichever tag it sells in the most. So if Call of Duty is also the best-selling combat footage, wartime combat footage, if that was a tag, which it probably isn't, or if Call of Duty was the best-selling action game and the best-selling shooter game, then Call of Duty should just get 2 best-selling awards. Like, you could be very hands-off on giving those awards, but then you would just be giving a lot more, which then people might tout as actually being prestigious, and then the Steam Awards may actually fake it until it makes it and actually gain some prestige. Whereas the Italian Video Game Awards are already limited to an extreme level because it's only Italian entries. So they will never have a high amount of relevancy. And in all fairness, I guess it's worth pointing out that a lot of the video game awards are definitely coming from a more Western perspective. It's not a global perspective as much as it should be. There's still plenty of Eastern Asian games that aren't getting nominated or considered at all during the Game Awards. And Tokyo Game Show really should have a better award system that has more prestige around it, but it kind of doesn't. If anything, it's very much just like the Oscars and Emmys in that nothing really has prestige around anything, and award shows have sold themselves as being this thing that deserves respect and prestige. The general concept of award shows have sold themselves that way, but they've never actually earned it. And that's not just in video game award shows, that's pretty much all award shows. I think we can do something here. Should we do something here? Or should we just wait? This card is, I guess, stopping me. What type is this? Beast? Beast and Warrior? Let's see how this goes. So you do that, and then you can summon this character, and then he'll gain the attack of that character, so he'll be at like 6,000. Oh, 5,000. We didn't play that much Yu-Gi-Oh! Last stream, but we'll play a little bit more today, I guess. I'm not as time rushed. Video Game Chronicles has this tweet, which I suppose it's worth mentioning that Facebook is trying to make a competitor to Twitter called Threads. Facebook/Instagram, still Facebook and Meta, regardless. There might very well be a point in which people are moving over the Threads, although the question is, can you have a good experience having, say, a personal Facebook that's supposed to be your friends and family, and then also having Threads integrated in some way where you can follow businesses and public broadcasts? Because honestly, that should have been a system that was there day one for Facebook, is that there should have been pages you follow that were public broadcasts and friends and family feeds, and the two of them should be somewhat separated out so that you're not missing friends and family and you're prioritizing friends and family over random public broadcasts. But that's not how Facebook has evolved by any means. Right now, I can definitely tell you that on my Facebook, I'm seeing basically no friends and family. Instead, I'm getting tons of clickbait ad videos and a lot of posts from groups. And I would see I would like to see Facebook potentially just convert groups into thread posts that are public, and introduce perhaps an idea to have private groups, but them still be in your thread posts. But I definitely want to see 2 columns. It can even be on the same page, but I want to see a column of friends and family posts on one and groups on the other. And honestly, maybe that works better to put ads on the side or even in the middle in the 3rd column, if that's what it comes down to. But yeah. There's not a lot of hope, though, around going to Instagram and Threads, because then you're just in Facebook and Facebook's control of the flow of information and their censorship. There's like one picture that I posted with no commentary several years ago, and it shows up in my memories on Facebook, which is mostly what I use Facebook for, is just to look at old posts I did and repost those potentially. But it's a picture of a skinny poor person holding up a fat rich person, a statue, a real statue that has been made, and I just posted it with no commenting, no words at all, and that picture got flagged for spreading false information. And then you click see why, and some other person has used that picture in some kind of fake news spreading post, but obviously their algorithm is not good enough that to the point where you can't even post the picture, and the picture is getting censored completely. So yeah, I'm not going to try and make a ridiculous argument that Elon Musk is keeping Twitter censorship free, or anything like that, even though that was some of the claims or hopes that he would do with it. But yeah, why move from one cesspool to another cesspool, as it were? It all has very much the feeling, as gamers we should be somewhat aware of this too, is in that NeoGAF had either, depending on which side of the story you believe, a toxic in some way, I don't even remember the story, person in charge of NeoGAF, and that person should have been cancelled, and then NeoGAF should have been taken over by the people trying to cancel him. Or on the other side of the argument, there was a group of toxic people at NeoGAF that were trying to take over NeoGAF, and that group of people eventually moved over to Reset Era. And so then you had this new Reset Era that looked a lot like NeoGAF, just wasn't being run by that one person. Meanwhile, there has been, in the long run, from my perspective and what I've heard, a lot more controversies since that point, since Reset Era has been established. There's been 0 controversies around NeoGAF and tons of controversies around Reset Era, which really does lean, in my opinion, towards the Reset Era people being the problem, looking potentially to cancel people and being just like out of control SJWs. Meanwhile, I assume you could still just go to NeoGAF. The guy in charge of NeoGAF said, we're just going to lock down the rules and only talk about video games and video games only, which is pretty much exactly what you would want from a forum like NeoGAF. The only slight difference between NeoGAF and Reset Era, and as far as I remember the drama around it, is that really nobody should be using either one of those forms, and shouldn't have been for many, many years. There might be an argument to going back to NeoGAF now if you're leaving Reddit, which Reddit is now threatening moderators who made some of their forums not safe for work. I definitely am noticing a lot more repetition and a lot less quality of posts. They had marked some of the forums as not safe for work as a form of protest, which would stop the forums from showing up on the front page. Which every little step Reddit makes to try and force their unpaid labor of mods into going back to the way they were just really highlights how necessary it is for those mods to exist. So for those forums and those subreddits to exist, to the point where it's really, really obvious that Reddit is nothing without its top 20%, top 10% of subreddits. And those subreddits will and can and probably will go to absolute garbage if the moderators who are running them and putting a lot of effort into it go away. It would have made a lot more sense, instead of making API changes, to try to create an artificial intelligence automation program that would moderate subreddits automatically. Like, I guess the idea here was that Reddit thought that they could just change the API program and nobody would complain about it, or not enough people would complain about it. But then to not back down when they found out they were wrong about that is just dumb. Okay, if I did that... Okay, I'm going to do something slightly risky here. We'll do this and this. I'll put 2 in here. We'll do that. We'll activate this effect to summon this. Although I could have probably put that face up defense mode. We can activate this now. And summon this. Could we get a 3? Is that more valuable? Yeah. I think I may have just been able to win there had I not summoned this character, but whatever. Let's see. We had this in attack mode, which would have been 700, and this, which would have been 1600, so adding those two together, you would have gotten 23. Either way, doesn't matter. Anyways, so yeah. A PlayStation-owned studio, Fire Sprite, has shown off a new, much larger office in Liverpool. There is probably a point we're going to hit where it's going to have to start being pointed out that these kinds of offices and this kind of fancy design is too much. Particularly now that we know that PlayStation spent like $200 million making The Last of Us. In fairness, renting out or leasing in a place and decorating it probably is somewhere around $1 million. These chairs arguably don't look very comfortable, and I have no idea why you would need a frame over here. I don't know what you're hanging up here. Monitors or paperwork. The Japanese neon lettering is totally unnecessary. Lighting is necessary, certainly, but fancy lighting is not necessary. Fancy desks. In a lot of ways, this feels like a hipster nightclub way more than an office. I guess I have to once again preach around the idea that what is best if you can't justify or allow people to work from home because it's a collaborative process of making video games, which I question how collaborative of a process it really is, but whatever. If you can't have them work from home, at least give them the decency to give them offices or cubicles. People, by default, should be capable of being locked into their own quiet area to think and do work. That's exactly how you would want it done in schools too, and it's not how schools happen. Instead, everybody's just in a classroom. The best thing schools do is have everybody looking forward and somewhat away from each other, so you're not staring in each other's eyes and encouraging pointless conversation, which that's what a lot of this design is. We want people to stare in each other's eyes and interrupt each other and have pointless conversations. Assuming you're supposed to work here, if this is supposed to just be the lounge, let's go to the full article here. If this is just supposed to be like the kitchen or something, well then I also have to question, why is this so terribly designed as a kitchen? Let's go, maybe it is, but yeah, maybe that's the kitchen. Here you have a bunch of monitors, but you have people sitting side by side with no real break. Perhaps this is an idea of parallel programming, but which I've heard is one of the best ways to do programming is to have one senior employee and one freshman employee programmer sit next to each other, and one describes what they want to happen while the other types it and tries to write the code out. And it's just like a process where you're doing a first pass to get it to work, and you don't, after an hour you swap and you don't go back and like rewrite the code that the previous person did. You just continue working in that parallel mentality, so at least two people are on the same page as far as what's going on, and two people are bouncing ideas off of each other. So that's not the worst idea if this is parallel programming, but if this isn't parallel programming, then you have a situation where I'm not even sure where the split here is on these monitors. Like, some of these look like whiteboards on the background, but it seems like if you're not doing parallel programming, you would want a cubicle split here, and you would want something on the side. Everything is just far too open for people to kick your chair as they walk by, or just have a conversation right behind your back. Somebody could be talking at a desk over here, and people over here are going to be disrupted. They're not all facing the same direction. There's not anywhere as fancy of a lighting or decoration in the place where they're supposed to really work compared to the kitchen. And then there's just some ridiculous stuff that, like, you're trying to make your office the fun place to hang out when it just really is never going to be the fun place to hang out, and really shouldn't be. Break rooms with pool tables and arcades. I think that's a ridiculous idea. Best case scenario I would think is have like your office situated where there is a potential fun place to hang out somewhere around. If you leave work and you want to go hang out at a pool hall and play pool, or an arcade and play arcades, and you can have certain employees deciding to hang out with other employees after hours if they want to, although I really wouldn't even encourage that. I would really heavily encourage, if not make it straight up rule, saying when you go home, you go home. You do not fraternize with any of the co-workers. You're only supposed to be co-workers with these people. You're not supposed to be friends with them. You're not supposed to start to think of them as family. Just because you're spending a lot of time with people doesn't mean that you're always going to be connected to that person, or that you should have any kind of more than cordial professional relationship with them. Whoops. That was the wrong one. That negates the face-up cards of the cards I currently control. I didn't currently control that one. Let's see if this works for me. Nope. This will be the last game we play. So then we have just like nicely decorated hallway, although it does seem like a lot of these paintings are just wasting money to decorate things instead of having awards or even real concept art for games they've worked on. Here's what I again assume is more of a kitchen area. I suppose they could have an all hands on deck meeting and talk to everybody. If every single person in the building needed to be in a meeting, they could have somebody give a presentation there. But you can see there's this glassed in area where meetings also happen. I kind of question whether meetings should be in glassed in areas, because that does kind of make an awkward situation if you're having a meeting that other people aren't supposed to know about, or if you're having a heated argument in the meeting amongst a group of people, and then all the rest of the office is looking at that. And I again assume that the Japanese here is just because it's PlayStation owned. Then you have a completely different style for this design in this other hangout area, which is far too many hangout areas. You have a sign, and really only that one picture of where they're actually going to work, and not that many desks. So yeah, this does not feel to me like a good way to use Sony's money, as it were. Feels to me like they just decorated an office. Now, there's some weirdness that I'll admit I don't fully understand, in that if you decorate and upgrade an office, the landlord lease person might be fairly happy about that. So they may have gotten a little bit of a break on the long-term lease. But even if that was the situation, and I'm heavily speculating there that that would be the case, we have seen, particularly around the pandemic and the movement of people wanting to work from home, that companies wasted a ton of money leasing offices, and there's a lot of companies that are straight up just going to stop paying their leases on offices because they don't need them, and because they were too expensive, and leases were just going up as all property costs were going up and up and up. Um, and you certainly are not, no amount of fancy decoration is going to convince people that want to work from home that working from home is a bad idea. So, yeah. That's another issue. We actually do have a decent amount of daily quests still to do if I was going to engage with that, but I'm not going to. Here's one of those GameDeveloper.com articles where it feels like there's just kind of stretching, or perhaps this is just straight up a Unity advertisement. The complete introduction to Unity game development. And then there's hyperlinks in the story, which I've never really seen hyperlinks in a GameDeveloper.com article. Stepping you through the basics of the Unity editor, how it's doing its top level concepts, and setting you up. It looks a lot like Blender, if you're familiar with Blender, but not that many people are. But as somebody who was traditionally educated and trained as a programmer, what is being shown here is not the programming stuff, which is basically barely touched in both Unreal Engine and Unity. At a certain level, you are just having to pop up a text editor and writing, I guess, C# code. Like this entire part here, before where scripting fits in, is just about how you make the 3D assets and place them in the 3D visual editor. And I will say that is the power of Unreal and Unity, in that you can have the same editor for the 3D modeler, for the animation maker, for the programmer, for the audio editor. They're all using the same software in admittedly drastically different ways, but it's all integrated, or at least it tries to be all integrated. I still wouldn't be surprised if the animator is actually animating like 3D skeletal movements in a different software and then exporting it and from that different editor and importing it into Unity. I wouldn't be surprised if the audio editor is using a different audio editor program and then exporting the audio files and importing them in. But at a certain point, the idea is that each one of those creative persons would have at least a basic understanding on how to import their files into Unity. It really, Unity and Unreal Engine, and at this point I would mostly just recommend Unreal Engine and not even recommend Unity because of the company that runs it messing up lately. It really is, though, a jack of all trades type software, and that's why you get menus with just a ridiculous amount of inputs and boxes and elements. It's interesting, I suppose, to show here that high dynamic range and MSAA are pull down menus for the models. So a lot of this is being built into itself. But yeah, if you were to just go into Unity and try to make something from scratch, you're not going to get very far because you're going to have to really wrap your head around at that point creating everything from cubes and spheres and capsules and cylinders, planes and quads, or texts, or terrains, or trees, or a wind zone. That's all the 3D images it can create, and that covers quite a lot when you realize you can texture a cube to look like anything, so it doesn't just have to be a cube of rock or something. But yeah, the rest of the elements that you have here are just effects and lighting and audio and video elements and user interfaces and cameras. Yep. This is really where you separate the wannabes from the people who can actually succeed, is that they're going to have that spark of creativity to say, a cube is my canvas, but I'm the artist and I have to paint on that cube. Whereas people who aren't artists are going to say, oh, I have a cube, so let's make something like Roblox and make a Roblox clone. Or more easily, most people just take demo projects from Unity and make something that's closer to an RPG Maker game, because all of that's pre-made and easy to do. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here saying Mortal Kombat 1 has added smoke and rain. I imagine we're potentially going to just have teases of new characters being added. I suppose at a certain level this does say they aren't just going to try and limit themselves down to the 8 or so characters that were in the original Mortal Kombat game. It was just called Mortal Kombat. And so that they are willing to introduce characters from the Mortal Kombat 2 and probably Mortal Kombat 3. I think when you start getting to like Mortal Kombat 5 or 6, you're probably getting into that later characters that people don't really remember or care about. In fact, as somebody who really hasn't played any Mortal Kombat since Mortal Kombat 2, I don't think there's a memorable new character introduced in the Mortal Kombat series until Mortal Kombat 11, which was the daughter of Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade as a character, and she's memorable as a character for really the wrong reasons, in that they hired a stunt voice actor who wasn't very good to do the face scans and the voice acting for her. In fairness, there were a couple other characters that visually looked interesting, but I never even caught their names. I think the more in Mortal Kombat 9, 10, and 11 that they went outside of Earthrealm and went to other realms and had these monster looking characters, it stopped being as relatable, which is a weird thing to say about Mortal Kombat, but I think it really is the case, that you really do want mostly humanoid looking people in a mostly human looking world fighting. We have a GameDeveloper.com article here. Embracer has raised $182 million through issuing shares weeks after announcing layoffs. So Embracer financially seems not to be in a good place, which is not super surprising for as much money as they spent and as little as they've actually released and made. They acquired too many companies too quickly, and now expectations have been set too high, would be my opinion on that. Embracer Group really should have just been THQ Nordic, and they never should have created a parent company called Embracer Group until THQ Nordic could prove itself to be a good enough game publisher / developer to put out good games. Like, if you just rewound time back and went back to the point where Nordic Games renamed themselves back or named themselves to THQ Nordic to try to be a spiritual resurrection of THQ, which I don't know why you needed to do that. if they had just stayed as Nordic Games and they had acquired the publishing rights to make remakes for SpongeBob SquarePants games and acquired the rights to make Darksiders 3, and they had put all their focus on those games and released those games, they would have been in a much better position. Because from what I remember, what did happen is THQ Nordic put THQ, which is basically cursing themselves with a failed company's name, and then Embracer Group became the parent company. Embracer Group acquired the rights to make remasters on the SpongeBob SquarePants, but I don't think THQ Nordic is really involved with that. Embracer then went on a spending spree, acquiring companies left and right, including Gearbox, which I'd say Gearbox perhaps was desperately trying to sell, while the selling was good to anybody. So Embracer Group, I could see them going with that, but yeah. Noticeably, Embracer Group does own Gearbox now, and they aren't announcing anything new around Gearbox. When really, if you'd acquired Gearbox, you should have announced something new that day. Now, that new thing can't be a Borderlands game, but it could be something that Gearbox is somewhat known for, something that feels a lot like a Borderlands game. 2K owns the rights to the Borderlands intellectual property, and Embracer Group did not get that. But yeah, they do own Duke Nukem. If they wanted to announce that we're actually planning on making a new Duke Nukem game, or at least I think they think they own it. They also acquired Crystal Dynamics and Deep Silver, and each one of those companies, Crystal Dynamics, Deep Silver, and THQ Nordic, announced that they are making layoffs. Now, because Embracer Group is issuing shares, I guess they're opening themselves up to a higher chance of a takeover of some sort, hostile or friendly, take your pick. And maybe it is just a case that the board of Embracer Group is trying to make as much money for themselves before they leave and let some other company, some other shareholders, vote in a new board or take over in a hostile takeover or a friendly takeover completely. But this really is moving money around, and when you see a big company moving money around, you know they're not doing anything smart. Apparently, a new 30-player Battle Royale Stadium Stampede mode for AEW Fight Forever is being teased in the trailer. That being said, I think reception for AEW Fight Forever is not as high as it should be, considering how many people were kind of hyped for that wrestling game. I think that it has the bugginess problem that almost every wrestling game has to some extent, but in a worse scale. Daedalic announced a couple days ago that they were giving up on making internal development, or at least it seemed like that. Perhaps what they really were trying to say is they were giving up on Lord of the Rings internal development because they had another Lord of the Rings game in the works. But they've kind of resurrected their Twitter, it feels like. I haven't seen anything tweeted from Daedalic in a long time, and you can see their headline here is the Surviving Deponia game, which I guess is still in development, although you could easily assume it isn't. Let's see. Yeah, this is June 10th as their pinned tweet is Surviving Deponia announcement. And then they retweeted on July 6th, yesterday, a Deponia meme, Happy International Kiss Day. This is a scene from the point and click game Deponia. Um, Here we have a point-and-click adventure, Life of Delta, on sale, which they're promoting that, and the Steam Summer Sale. Then they're back to Deponia art on Instagram. So it does really seem to me like they are trying very hard to make you forget about Golem, which is fair enough. But then they also are just trying to slide back into being the point and click adventure game company at this that's known for Deponia. You can see there's just like Friday fan art or fan art day of some sort, just showing some real love for Deponia still. It's not until you get all the way back to May 26th that we have the Golem comment from Lord of the Rings Golem's Twitter being retweeted by Daedalic Entertainment. And then you start to see a lot more Golem promotion. Yeah. So I cannot get this analogy out of my head, so I have to apologize for using this analogy. But can you go into a McDonald's and poop on the floor and then expect to be allowed back in that McDonald's or in the good graces of the McDonald's employees a week later, a month later, a year later? I would say the answer to that question is no. And that's pretty much what Daedalic has done. So you'd be kind of crazy to play Surviving Deponia. On top of which, Surviving Deponia as a concept feels like it's not that smart of a concept anyways, in that it is just a survival game set in the Deponia universe on the junk planet part of Deponia. Looks like it's going to be very repetitive and not really that unique. And I'll be interested in seeing other people's reaction to it, but it is an interesting question on a higher level. Should companies just be forced into a liquidation / death of their existence if they really screw up and put out a bad video game? The answer is probably no to that, but they should lose people's faith. They should lose people's trust. If they started to ask people to pre-order Surviving Deponia, which they basically are because it is coming out in early access, you really shouldn't give them the time of day. Video gamers have a very short memories, and we need to have longer memories in these cases and really come out and say, no, it's not acceptable for you to ask us to trust you for this next game when you've put out such a bad game. And inherently, it's worth pointing out this isn't even the first time Daedalic has done that. It's the first time Daedalic has done it at this scale, so you can't really even blame Nacom, their parent company, because Daedalic has put out a lot of mediocre ending on a cliffhanger point and click adventure games that aren't that good. Like, it has always been up and down on the quality of their games. Now Deponia specifically, they tended to put a little bit more polish on it, but the other non-Deponia related games are up and down in quality. So yeah, I guess my message here, it's taking too long to say it, is don't put your faith in Daedalic. Speaking of other people not to put your faith into, here's the YouTube advertisers, and they put out this tweet on July 6th. Anime creators have found fans around the world by encouraging engagement from crowdsourcing ideas to community building. Learn how your trends currently about the trends currently on radar at this blog post, which we'll click on. The problem with this, though, is if you're at all familiar with anime YouTubers, they notoriously have to not show any anime at all, unless it is a custom anime avatar they have for their own character, or just them describing the events of an anime. That's about as good as you can get it, because Japanese people, particularly anime companies, are following Japanese copyright law, or their interpretation of Japanese copyright law, as far as doing content IDs, and often just DMCAs and takedown notices. So there's nowhere close to what the appropriate United States fair use should be, considering YouTube is a United States based company when it comes to anime. The best anime YouTubers out there have like deals with anime companies to basically only say nice things, so there's no real criticism happening. So yeah, there really isn't a good reason for YouTube to promote anime on YouTube. It just isn't going to work at all, because anime creators don't want anime to work. Perhaps this is an attempt to convince Japanese anime copyright holders to let more anime on YouTube, and perhaps this is an attempt even to have more buy anime episodes and watch them on YouTube instead of going through Crunchyroll or some other service. But the reason why Crunchyroll and other services exist in particular for anime is because those companies want tight controls, and usually they want to be in charge of the website that anime is being streamed on, if it's going to be streamed on at all. Then you also run into a problem here as far as just anime in general, when you try to, if it starts to be put in front of the public in the moe characters. So if I click here, this anime character at first doing this dance looks fine. That's not really anime. That is an anime girl. And then you have three moe girls, little girls dancing too. So yeah, you have one pencil sketch thing that I would not call anime at all. You really cannot call that anime that's being shown there. You have another anime girl that you started with that's not animated that well. This is part of the problem too, and then that's an anime girl that was actually taken from an actual anime show, and so are the little moe girls. Netflix tried to expand what anime meant to, I'm sure Netflix at this point is trying to call AI generated stuff that includes no human input at all would also be considered anime, when I'll just put out my personal definition. I think anime has to be mostly made for a Japanese audience in a recognizable anime style, so derivative of our pre-existing anime, or evolutions at least of pre-existing anime. The splitting point there being like the very first animes were based on Mickey Mouse and early Disney things, and then they've evolved over decades to the point where the very first animes barely even look like animes. But yeah, if they go out of a specific style, if it's not big eyes, if it's not very colorful, bright colorfuls, and um, then that tends to not really count as anime. Um, but yeah, it has to be mostly made for a Japanese audience first and foremost for it to be anime. Even if you hire Japanese animators, but they're making a like uh, Ninja Turtles cartoon for a Western audience, then that's not anime. Now, if you hire a bunch of Japanese animators and are making a Ninja Turtles cartoon for the Japanese audience, that would be anime. Um, but yeah, it has to either, for the most part, it has to be a Japanese animator. It could potentially be like a Korean animation house for a Japanese audience, and I still might consider it anime, but I'd almost call that K anime at that point, Korean animation, whatever you want to call that. Japanese people call all animation anime, so that their definition doesn't really work for the West because you definitely aren't going to look at Ren and Stimpy and say Ren and Stimpy is anime in the West. And honestly, I think Japanese people would call Ren and Stimpy Western animation, not anime alone. But yeah, they're saying 85% of total anime viewership comes from outside of Japan. Uploads related to anime have grown 40% year over year globally, and 85% of total viewerships. Oh, so it's just two metrics here. 40% year over year growing globally, and most of it's coming from outside of Japan. Is YouTube advertisers really trying to, I think, make an argument that the anime companies should put their entire anime shows for free or for purchase on YouTube instead of Crunchyroll? And I just don't think that's going to actually fly. And even if it does fly, it's just not where YouTube advertising should be focused. Unless YouTube advertising or advertisers at this point are not even really trying to have commercials and they're just trying to have property. If they're just trying to go down the Netflix route of we want more actual artistic content that we can sell and less commercials for things to put, which, maybe that would work. As YouTube is trying to force more and more people to not use ad blockers, maybe it would work if we saw commercials to watch TV shows and pay a small fee for YouTube Premium to watch TV shows, or small fee to purchase specific shows. It'd have to be pretty small though. It'd have to be like less than $1 an episode, and I doubt anime shows are gonna charge less than $1 an episode. Because if it was a 26 episode anime and you're getting $26 for somebody to own it digitally and stream it, that's still about $74 less than they would like to make on a season, because in Japan in particular, anime seasons box sets are selling for like $90 to $100 is what they'd like to sell them for. It's very expensive because it's a niche it's a niche product still, even if it is growingly becoming popular. But yeah, I would definitely say YouTube advertising is better. Would be better focusing on something else. Here they're talking about lo-fi lore, which, yeah, maybe they are trying to dip more into getting that popularity that once was around the lo-fi beats to chill to, although noticeably lo-fi beats to chill to was just committing fairly obvious copyright infringement in that they were parodying and changing copyrighted music enough so it wouldn't get caught by the content ID system, and just playing it without really adding a creative element to it. It was also automated, I assume, so there was no human hand involved in turning a song that they didn't have the copyright license to into a lo-fi version of that song before streaming it. Lowering the fidelity doesn't mean you can copy it. So you have these Wes Anderson inspired creations. I have no idea what that's about. I don't really know Wes Anderson. Then anime around the world. Let's see what this is. What started as a niche local community in Japan, anime, which feature original animated characters and stories, has steadily grown and reached new heights in global popularity. Uploads of videos related to anime have grown 40% globally year over year, with 85% of total anime viewership coming from outside of Japan. 85% of that coming from outside of Japan, because also not that many people looking at YouTube, relatively speaking, in Japan. There are other sites you would watch in streaming on outside of YouTube. One such example of this worldwide influence is seen in the anime Toka Toka dance trend, which quickly saw many reincarnations in Korea and India, not Japan. What is it? Lineup, I think. Line. No, it's just called Line. Line is one of the services that they might spend more time on. Why this matters: the global success and demand for anime is due in large part to the creator-fan interaction that anime creators have encouraged. Creators have amassed fans around the world and increased engagement by implementing their participation, from crowdsourcing ideas to crowdfunding the community building. Consider bringing your audience into the creative process to both deepen and widen your connection. You also run into a problem here if these anime people in this video they're using as an example are making animations, then you're just back to the problem with animation on YouTube, that you can never make enough footage fast enough for it to be worth its money. If it takes you a month to animate something and it's a 10-minute video, you're not going to get the YouTube Partner Program ad revenue to justify that month of work. If anything, it feels like they've just picked a bunch of random stuff. Either that, or that this is the top trending things, and it just points to how random the audiences on YouTube are, as it really isn't an amalgamation of one mindset. It's just random people showing up and looking at some things for a month or two and then moving their attention to something else, or leaving YouTube completely, and another random group of people showing up. Yeah. Now people are speculating as to why Lo-Fi Girl got replaced with Lo-Fi Boy. Which is ridiculous. And that's just YouTuber reacting YouTubers talking about nothing. And I guess Mexican music is also a thing. And then there's still either is a real fandom for makeup videos on YouTube, or YouTube is just promoting it. One thing I will say is that one YouTuber in particular, who is way more popular than he probably deserves to be, and is fairly right-wing in my opinion, although he'll deny it and say he's centrist. He has denied it and said he's centrist. He is constantly, still to this day, using Susan Wojcicki's image in his thumbnails every time he makes a drama video about how YouTube is awful and doing something awful, which I have to denounce at this point. Susan Wojcicki has stepped down from being the CEO for at least a couple months now. If you're going to use somebody's face to be the face of YouTube, it should be the new guy that's in charge. Although I guess if you're a tinfoil hat conspiracy type, you might think that she might still secretly be running things in the background, but I doubt it. Like, her Twitter has, for the most part, gone silent, and she is really just promoting whatever she wants to promote or talk about whatever she wants. Although, in all fairness, that's what she did as a CEO too, is that she used YouTube to promote and rub elbows with famous people way more than she seemed to ever discuss actually doing the job or improving YouTube. Yeah. Magic Awakened here, since I am playing it, is going to apparently add deck building, community spotlights, and a class in session for Professor Trelawney. Welcomes you to divination. I've yet to get to a point where it seems like you can have multiple decks, but I also kind of would question whether you even need multiple decks, even though each deck only really has 8 cards. They are doing the right thing by advertising that they're adding more stuff, but yeah, they're starting off fairly weak in what Magic Awakened actually has. And there's a whole bunch of chat systems in the game that I didn't even mention that are just nonsense, like global chat, local chat, form of group chat, friends group chat, and then a join a social club chat. It's just like 5 or 6 different chats in a game that doesn't have enough gameplay to justify having even one chat so far. It almost feels like that's what they wanted to do, is have a game where people were just hanging out, wandering around doing nothing in Hogwarts and talking to each other, just trying to get the really young kids to make their own fun, which I don't feel like that is reasonable at all. Steam Deck has passed 10,000 verified and playable titles. Of course, they determine whether something is verified and playable, so they could have sped up or slowed down to get to 10,000 at any point. I would imagine there are somewhere around 300,000 games on Steam in general. Of that, let's just assume that 100,000 of those games are things that are even slightly worth playing. And actually, let's bring that number down to, maybe 1,000 for any individual person. So, I would say if there are 10,000 verified and playable games, which verified and playable, I assume, is the highest ranking they have, which implies there will only be as many minor glitches as you might see playing a game on a regular PC. Yeah. I would say you have a 1 in 10 chance of finding 1,000 games there that you personally would want to play if there are 10,000 plus verified and playable games. Getting from 10,000 to 20,000 is going to be a lot harder than getting from 0 to 10,000, as you're going to struggle to find games that have any kind of player base, making it even worth testing, or any kind of player base that of people who are even interested. Eventually you're going to have to shift to more of a system of people submitting new games to be verified and to be playable on the Steam Deck, versus looking at old games or patching old games to make them playable. And inherently, I think you lose a lot of value in the Steam Deck if you're not willing to go the emulation route. Because as soon as you go the emulation route, you have a decent system here to have at least 10,000 more games that could be emulated on the Steam Deck. Are there 10,000 old games worth really emulating? No, but there are definitely probably 1,000 really good old games that are worth emulating. And then there's 9,000 that you might emulate anyways because they're so small. You still don't really have a massive amount of storage though. It's not like you can put a 2 terabyte NVMe stick for cheap into the Steam Deck. That's something the Steam Deck 2 could really benefit from, is just having maybe a thicker case slightly in the back so you could put a regular full length, I guess it's 80 millimeter or 140 millimeter NVMe, and potentially have more battery backup in the extra space otherwise. But yeah, without that extra amount of storage, if you're going to start trying to have like PlayStation 3 games being emulated or newer, the files are going to get pretty big. Although if you're just emulating NES games or arcade games of old, then files are insignificantly small. GameDeveloper.com also retweeted their pinned thing that they've reopened submissions on Game Developer, which clearly they are looking for other people to write articles because they don't have enough writers themselves. And that's another example of things being slow. Another example of things being slow is that we have Telltale Games all of a sudden just showing up again, trying to promote things. Like 18 years ago, like on this date in 2009, they released the Tales of Monkey Island Telltale game series, which is on sale during the Steam summer sale. And then they're trying to promote that over 18 years they made 30 titles, which is why they went out of business in the first place. As over 18 years they should have made at most 18 titles. And they're promoting here Puzzle Agent, I think was the name of this game, which is about the least recognizable Telltale game possible. Whereas previously they were just promoting The Expanse. And it is important also to point out that this is straight up lies, because the Telltale that is posting this tweet is not the Telltale Games company. It's none of the employees, as far as I know, of the same company. So when you have a company that buys the name of Telltale and then posts, on this date in 2019, we released Tales of Monkey Island. This Telltale didn't release Tales of Monkey Island. The old Telltale that went out of business released Tales of Monkey Island. This is phrased intentionally deceptive, to make it feel like Telltale never went out of business and it's the same employees when it really isn't. Almost, maybe there's one or two employees from Telltale working at the new Telltale. This logo is not even the same logo. But yeah, they've shifted from talking about The Expanse to talking about old games that the old Telltale posted, which makes me wonder if The Expanse is not going particularly well. Let's see. Sega has cooled on blockchain and NFT interest and questions whether the tech will, quote, take off. That is the right response, but it inherently also highlights that not only Sega, but pretty much every company was just talking about NFT and blockchains to get a bump in their stock prices for an illegitimate reason. They effectively committed fraud and these companies were allowed to do it by saying we're investigating NFT and blockchain when they probably didn't actually investigate it at all. So then they would get a bump in their stock prices after saying that, and then now that blockchains and NFTs have shown themselves to be not desirable, they're abandoning it, which, I mean, it's the right move. It'd be a lot worse if Sega came back and said, we're still all in on blockchain and NFT after the fan response around those comments, but their indication that they were investigating that. I guess it's good to be a rich man, even in Japan, because the Sonic co-creator Yuji Naka has been handed a suspended sentence and fined 1.1 million for insider trading. Naka's 2.5-year prison sentence will be suspended for 4 years, which, unless I'm misunderstanding that means as long as he doesn't get arrested for anything else in 4 years or found guilty of anything else in 4 years, he doesn't have to spend a single day in Japanese prisons. Which, you know, for a Japanese legal system, that sounds incredibly generous. Like, suspended really is the wrong term, though, because it makes it seem like it's suspended for 4 years, then he has to go serve 2.5 years after that 4 years, and that's not really what a suspended sentence means in the West. Certainly, a poor Japanese person who managed to do insider trading probably wouldn't have gotten a suspended sentence, but he did probably admit guilt, and that may have, I think he did plead guilty, and that probably helped him a little bit, but really shouldn't. Compared to a poor person in Japan, pleading guilty wouldn't have gotten you any leniency. But yeah, it certainly shakes any foundation of trust of the legal system in Japan more than already. You shouldn't have trusted the legal system in Japan to see that seemingly rich people can get away with insider trading. We'd have to really see here. Yeah. Naka was accused of spending 2.8 million yen to purchase 10,000 shares in Aiming, a company called Aiming, after learning the studio would be working with Square Enix on Dragon Quest Tactics, or Tact, before the partnership was made public. Other people also were involved in this. He also alleged to have invested over 144.7 million yen into Final Fantasy VII The Final Soldier developer A-Team before the project was officially announced. Which, that to me seems like he made way more, but maybe not. It seems to me like he may have made more money than the $1.1 million US dollar fine. They're going between yen and dollars here. Alright, let's see. He was handed 2 fines, one of 2 million yen, which is 14,000, and another was 170 million, which is 1.1 million. Okay. So, he almost certainly did make more money. Let's just put the number here. 2.8 million yen, and then you will find 2 million yen. So 0.8 million yen would still be in the 10,000 shares as profit, plus these shares, because he was doing insider trading, almost certainly have gone up. And so if he hasn't sold these shares already, these 10,000 shares, he could sell them now and make up the difference. same here. 144 million yen was invested, and those shares would almost certainly have gone up more than the 170 million yen for the second fine. Both fines seem to imply, you'd have to actually figure out what the shares are worth now or when he sold them, but both of them seem to imply that he made a profit there. Well, what can you say? This look is being interpreted on my face as a little bit more smug, because it seems like he got away with it. And I would say in the old days of Japanese honor, if honor was really a thing in Japanese culture, this guy would be committing harikari or whatever, ritual suicide, for the dishonor he's brought on his family and upon himself. That being said, honor was never really a thing among thieves and criminals in Japan or anywhere. That honor was something more shown in plays, and sure, high noblemen may have followed honor codes, but a street thief certainly wouldn't care about the Japanese concept of honor. Moving on, a Pokemon trading card game collection contest has been announced. Players can win entire booster boxes, accessories, and more. I guess, why is this not quite where we want it to be? Alright. So, the contest will run throughout the summer, which offer exclusive prizes. Online competition for collectors in the UK, France, and Germany only, it seems like. So I guess the question is, how do you depict or do this? There's a round 1 for favorite collection, a round 2 for storage and display, round 3 for coveted cards, and round 4 for favorite Pokemon. Yeah, so I guess you're just sending in pictures or videos, and I almost assume that this is not in any way actually affiliated with Pokemon, although it seems like maybe it is. Apparently English International is allowed. So yeah, you can see here on this gallery there are just people showing off their cards. Actually, I would say that they're missing a trick here, in that this really should have been the kind of contest that Nintendo and Pokemon should have done all along. There's very few pictures here that are being listed as the hottest entries, and none of these are displaying cards in a particularly good way. That's sort of okay, but that's a little bit better. Obviously, there are people who are actually putting their cards into binders, and then there's a lot of people who are just displaying cards as a mess on the floor. But yeah, you would almost certainly, total entries 404. I wonder if that's a joke. Yeah. If Nintendo had encouraged the idea of collecting cards or Pokemon cards more, they may have gotten a few more sales. That being said, it probably is better that they didn't encourage that mentality and instead encourage people to actually play with the cards, which is a much better mentality to encourage, certainly. Um, yeah. Ideally, I think any collectible card game would be best off if the cards had barely any value at all, no real resale value, um, and you just played with them and you weren't that upset if it got scratched or bent or torn. Like, if you think about the best selling cards in the history of man, it's almost certainly a standard playing deck of cards that have no real value. And if you mess up a card in your deck of cards with the ace, king, jack, queens, you just get a new deck, and it's not a big deal. Whereas if you were playing a Black Lotus card in Magic the Gathering, then and that got torn, you're out potentially thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars, to the point where you really wouldn't play with them. And that's when they started introducing the idea of proxies in tournament play for very expensive cards. And there's really only so many different ways you can show off a card. Although, I do have a project where I bought a deck of tarot cards that were done by an artistic creator named Rain, Rann, and they're called manga tarot, but honestly the art style is much more of a unique French art style than manga inspired or anime inspired. And so what I ended up doing was buying like 5 picture frames and then a lot of photo corners, which are these little stickers with where you slide the corners of a photo into it, and making just a whole grid with 5 different picture frames. And then I'm going to use, when I work on the project again, a wire to hang each of the picture frames in line on a photo hanging wire, and then screw it all into a wire mount point above it. So it's going to be 5 picture frames hanging from a steel wire to depict it. The problem with that, though, is that the tarot cards themselves cost about $25, and the picture frames and the wiring and the photo corners easily went into $200, $250. Way more to display the card than the cards are worth. And that's exactly the problem you're going to run into trying to display any large amount of cards. I did a lot of research looking. There are some frames you can get for about $80 where you could put baseball cards or Pokemon cards or whatever cards you want in the frame on its own little shelf, but that's only going to get you about 60 or 70 cards. When you start to get to Pokemon and you have a really massive collection, if you really want to show things off, the binder is really the only way to display it. It is the established way. It's the only way that makes any sense at all. If you want to go crazy and glue Pokemon cards to your floor or to your wall, you could make wallpaper like that, certainly. But you wouldn't be able to take it down and use it, and you'd be destroying the value on the Pokemon cards. You could almost certainly do that with extra Pokemon energy cards. But yeah, if you're actually going to play the cards and display a card collection of any kind, you're going to have to use a binder unless it's a very small amount of cards. Even here on the screenshot, they're really struggling to find ways to show off the Pokemon things. You also have a problem with these foil wrappers around these blind bags, card packs, in that there's really just not a good way to open them because they're just heat sealed with the foil is melted at the top and bottom. Best case scenario, you have like a really sharp paper cutter and you cut off the top or bottom. Ideally you would cut off the bottom and get the cards out of it. But then there is also an attempt to spread apart the back that's also glued together so that you could flatten the seals of the wrappers to display that. And that's a lot of work too. That's a lot of work that I definitely spent a lot of time thinking about when I was collecting Nintendo and Pokemon stuff too. And I don't think I ever got anywhere good as far as storing or displaying any of it. And eventually my Nintendo collection got so big that displaying anything was just not realistic anymore. There's too much stuff. Sega executives call play to earn blockchain games, quote, boring. What's the point if games are no fun? Is the sub headline quote here. Which, again, I agree with them. It's like a play to earn blockchain game does sound like a boring concept. Sounds like gold mining in World of Warcraft, a concept from several decades ago. And the play to earn concept, either around blockchain or otherwise these days, is only going to really give you in-game currencies. It's almost certainly not going to give you a direct way in which you can earn real world money. Let's see. What happens if I just reload this page? Oh yeah, it fixes it. So I changed the zoom and then I needed to reload the page. Super Mario Brothers movie is coming to the streaming service Peacock next month, which is probably a little deceptive in the fact that it's already available on demand and is getting a physical release later in July. That all that really means is that if you happen to have Peacock, and I don't know why you would, you could watch it, I assume, for free. And it's showing up on Peacock because it's a Universal movie. And all Universal, DreamWorks, and Illumination films are apparently exclusive to Peacock because Peacock is also owned by Universal, I believe. NBC, Universal, merged. Yeah, and Peacock is NBC. Street Fighter 6 has topped 2 million sales worldwide. And then Ubisoft is going to release another historical edition for Assassin's Creed Mirage. I think it's really ridiculous that Ubisoft is still trying to make these educational versions of Assassin's Creed. It must either be that they're getting some kind of government incentive somewhere, or some school system somewhere is actually engaging with it a lot more. Although this Assassin's Creed character, if he is from Mirage, he's missing his finger, as the early assassins always cut off their fingers so the blade could go through where that finger is, but it looks like he's missing the other finger also, and that seems fairly bloody and gory to highlight that. But yeah, that's the real problem with Assassin's Creed anyways, is that it's in the name. The game having assassins in the name is controversial for some parents, I'm sure, and the themes of the game, when you actually play the game, of assassinating people and perhaps a general mistrust of religion, would be offensive to some, for sure. Let's see. Meanwhile, while what seems like an unaffiliated people are making a Pokemon trading card collection event, there is a Pokemon official Twitter trading card game that has a giveaway to win a piece of the Pokemon TCG Vault from Sword and Shield, which, yeah, I imagine there is a lot of entries that would enter in that. Although maybe not that many, particularly if this is a contest that's only being promoted on Twitter. I don't know how many young kids are on Twitter. I don't know if the young kids are anywhere. Scarlet and Violet 151 is... I don't even know what that really means. Did they introduce 151 new cards from Scarlet and Violet? This is for the older Sword and Shield game. PAX has a tweet, but before we get to it, I wanted to, I guess, applaud PAX for either sticking with it with the rainbow coloring, or maybe that is just always their default logo. I would say there probably should be a hole here where the P is and then a hole where the A is. It being solid black seems a little bad. But yeah, every other video game Twitter account has gotten rid of the Pride rainbow stuff, and you do paint yourself, I guess, in a little bit of a corner in that if you stick past Pride Month with the Pride flags, then you potentially are going to get called out and yelled out when you do change it. So it makes a lot of sense to only keep it until July 1st, and then July 1st immediately change back to the logo. Now that we're at July 7th, they've kind of painted themselves in a corner. The big announcement, though, is that a Nintendo Live event is going to be taking place alongside PAX West this year. PAX West badge holders will have a chance to win free tickets, but you'll have to get your badge and opt in before Friday, July 7th. So what is a Nintendo Live event? It is where Nintendo is just going to have a physical presence there, and you're going to get in there and play whatever games they want to let you play or see whatever they want to show you. They're still using the same pictures from previous live events announcements, in that you have like two either young adults or older brother and sisters playing video games, and then the young kid that really should be the target audience for a Nintendo event doesn't seem like they're even playing. Then you have another young kid, then you have two older ladies, and then you have another young kid and a Mario and Luigi in the suit, and then you have three actual game footage things. But yeah, ideally you get rid of the old ladies and this, and you focus in on the kids, the young kids. Nintendo almost certainly should exclusively advertise to young kids, even if they do allow games like Bayonetta 3 and adult games to come out. You don't really have to advertise to them at a Nintendo Live. You should still try to maintain that family-friendly appearance that Nintendo enjoys quite a bit, even though they do a lot of nonsense. Let's see. Was there anything new from Major Nelson? I did put his YouTube channel into my subscribed list. So next time there is a Xbox podcast, I'll watch it live instead of, I'll watch the video instead of just listening to it or on my RSS feeder. My RSS feeder in particular is not potentially going to last forever at this rate, because so many of the RSS feeds I was following were Reddit, and if Reddit's going away, which it seems like it might, then it's going to become less useful. Plus, a lot of the pre-downloaded podcasts that I'd listen to, I'm mostly just letting them play while I'm asleep, and so I'm not actually hearing what's being said. It's just noise and background sound effects. Yeah. So in Magic Awakened, you see a different rendition of this character as you get your wand. You get an owl, which doesn't really seem to do anything, but I've yet to be able to get to this section, or doing flying, or fighting of dragons. We did fight a troll in the bathroom. Definitely not animated anywhere this nicely. Problem, though, with Hogwarts Legacy is the gameplay mechanic. As much as Magic Awakens gameplay mechanic has a problem in that they're trying to take the wizard dueling concept and somehow turn that into a video game. And in Hogwarts Legacy, it seems like you probably just mash buttons to fight each other, and cast smaller, like Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt type attacks whenever you press the A button. In Magic Awakens, it's you drag the card that says Thunderbolt multiple times. Anyways, we're really far behind, so let's start going through the news very quickly here. I don't know if I fixed the auto blur issue. We already talked about the Stadium, what was it called? Stampede Battle Royale mode being teased. Let's see. Nintendo Switch has reportedly earns the best ever June sales in Japan. Sales of the system were likely boosted by Zelda in the recent Nintendo Direct. Definitely affected me, the most recent Nintendo Direct. I bought 3 old games because of announcements of new games. So it definitely got me hyped, even as somebody who only plays older games. We already talked about the Firespite Studio and Mortal Kombat and the Italian Game of the Year Awards and Super Mario Bros. Movie. So, Diablo 4 Season 1, Season of the Malignant, has been revealed, and it launches July 20th, which I have to just assume means everything you've done before July 20th is going to be reset. Season of Malignant Battle Pass begins on July 20th and has 90 tiers, 27 free ones, and 63 premium tiers, which definitely makes it feel like if the first 27 are the free ones, a lot of people could get away with that, but usually there are 3 tiers or so for every one free tier. So going level 1 may give you tier 1 may give you a free reward and a premium reward, and then tier 2 may only give you a premium, tier 3 may only give you a premium, and then 4 would give you a free and a premium. Although then would that be 90 tiers really at that point? No, you would have to toggle in between. Players who have purchased the Deluxe or Ultimate Edition of the game can redeem their free Battle Pass when the season begins. Players can also skip tiers on the Battle Pass, which will cost 200 platinum per tier skip. So you can just pay to skip the entire gameplay for some insane reason. There's nothing here that says your progress up until this point resets, but as far as I understand it, once this season is over, your character resets and you have to create a whole new character. And I don't think anything carries over, which really makes Diablo 4 undesirable to me, as somebody who just wants to play a single player solo mode of Diablo 4 at best. I also heard a rumor that if you follow the rats in Diablo 4, they might be leading you to better loot. Where I talked about Yuji Naka and Sony exec calling blockchain games boring. Let's see, the first quote gameplay images of Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown will be revealed next week, so that's just an announcement for an announcement. We talked about the Pokemon trading card contest. Apparently Spider-Man 2 is getting its own Comic-Con panel this month, which, yeah. I had heard from comic book YouTubers, though, that they were thinking Comic-Con was either on the verge of being canceled like E3 forever, or should just be canceled from E3 forever. Inherently, I think Comic-Con, for comic book fans, has always been a poor convention and Comic-Con increasingly has just had panels talking about movies and video games and things that aren't actually comic related. Comic-Con might be very good if you want to go and purchase cheap comics in the vendor booths, but the actual announcements and the actual events are minimal and strictly run by Marvel and DC for the most part. And if anything, Comic-Con probably there needs to be, and there might very well exist, an indie comic convention out there, but a lot more focus around indie new comics and things like that don't sell anywhere as well, but should be getting promoted more so they could possibly sell more. After raising the Game Pass prices, Xbox has brought back its $1 trial offer. It's important to point out, though, they raised the prices in everywhere except for the United States and a few other countries. So, as of July 6, prices increased in most markets, excluding Norway, Chile, Denmark, Switzerland, and Saudi Arabia. Also included the United States, though, as they're not mentioning that for some reason. Let's see. NBA 2K24 to feature crossplay for the first time. Kobe Bryant Edition, Black Mamba Edition, and 25th Anniversary Editions have been detailed. Who is Black Mamba? Is that a basketball player? Or is that just a weird name? Shoot, now I'm out of water. Let's see. Nintendo has released a Pikmin 4 Beginner's Guide video if you want to watch that at Video Games Chronicle. And then Video Games Chronicle went really far today as far as news, so there actually is a lot of news here. Here's the History of Baghdad feature revealed for Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is obviously trying to be educational. Let's see. Here was the reminder that Microsoft was raising the Game Pass prices on Thursday. Yeah. Again, they're not mentioning the United States for some reason. Yeah. What is it saying? The monthly price of Xbox Game is announced last month. From July 6, prices would be rising in most markets, excluding Norway, Chile, Denmark, Switzerland, and Saudi Arabia. PC Game Pass is not changing at this time. Microsoft will also raise the price of the Xbox Series X console next month, excluding the United States, Japan, Chile, Brazil, and Colombia. So maybe I got this wrong. Maybe Game Pass prices did go up, but the console for the Xbox Series didn't go up. Yeah. Well, everything's getting more expensive. What can we say? We knew it. If you don't have an Xbox Series X at this point, there's probably not a good reason to buy one. And with the court cases, they basically have had to say that the PlayStation 5 is the better console to buy at the moment. You may, if you need to buy a console right now, I'd say get a PlayStation 5 and then think about jumping ship to maybe the next Xbox if the Activision Blizzard acquisition happens. That being said, the best solution still by far is to be on PC, because while PC pricing is not controlled by Microsoft and PC Game Pass pricing is not changing, so if for some reason you wanted Game Pass on PC, that's still a good deal. Although, why have Game Pass instead of just buying games on Steam for a more permanent ownership of those games? Although not completely permanent ownership, in that Skullgirls has added censorship to their 10-year-old game, and you should look that up and talk about that. This has ended them up on the dirty devs list of Sid, the YouTuber Sid Alpha, for coming in and changing it. Let's see, Skullgirls on Steam. Let's see, yeah. Here we go. So, I don't have the statistics, like the story, straight in my head, particularly, as far as all the drama around Skullgirls' second encore in particular. But you can see it is 22% negative in the last 30 days, where it was 77% over the lifetime, and you have 5,124 negative reviews here. And this is just straight up from censorship. There's been a few, I guess, pro-censorship or bot ads, whatever you want to attribute to that, to try to balance it out, particularly when you're looking at how few reviews were coming in positive or negative at all before the change was made. But yeah, it is a huge thing, and notably in this case, Steam is not stepping in and trying to call this review bombing. And here you have like a positive review, and this is probably where the positive reviews are coming from. Thanks for removing a few of the character colors I didn't like. Hopefully you can remove the rest of the game in the next update. So, yeah. And since this is a digitally only game, you have a situation where you can't really own the original version of Skullgirls' second encore. Here we have censored content, censored gaming, please, or cut content, please, is the curator. Even more censorship that covers up or censors many aspects of the game, from panty shots to anything deemed even remotely controversial. Link to the video showing changes, patch none. So let's see if we can see the video here. Okay. So we kind of have a blurred thing. Character had a like red armband swastika. This guy had a red armband swastika. This girl had a red armband swastika. I assume some panty shots being shown here. Red armband swastika type thing. This is not the best way to depict this because we got the blur on here. Like, you still have like some cleavage being shown in a lot of places, so it's like when you look at the new, there's still a lot of lewd content. This is a really bad comparison video. It's moving too far, and they did say you basically are gonna have to pause it. Illustrations altered, illustrations gone. Just a ton of changes. Yeah. Kind of pointless changes too, from the looks of it. Because you're not getting past what Skullgirls as a concept was in the art style. So here you can see the new one has a line covering up some legs. Yeah. So yeah, that was a bad video to try and use, but yep. The bigger problem censorship is a problem. Having your game modified after 10 years, a game that was clearly designed around a certain art style and a certain mentality, is completely unacceptable. And I'm glad to see that basically everybody is on the same page with this. And we need stronger reactions towards censorship. This is not a game that was selling itself in one way and then I mean, even now you've still got long legs and lots of cleavage being shown. It's ridiculous to potentially change it. So, yeah. Once your game has been released, you really can't change it. Otherwise, it is just falling under censorship. Once you put it out in the public, it has to be available to the public in that original form. We can't live in a world where we abide George Lucas trying to destroy all the original versions of Star Wars, so you have to watch the remastered versions of Star Wars Episode 4, 5, and 6, so he can screw his ex-wife out of residuals or whatever reason he actually has for not re-releasing, and Disney has for not re-releasing the originals. But then there is also even more drama around this, in that the original person in charge of the company that has Skullgirls, I don't know if that's Hidden Variable Studios or not, they were trying to cancel him and get rid of him. The employees were, and they failed miserably. It seems like that's the story. And eventually, because he just owned the company and there was no way to get rid of him, they were trying to pressure him to sell the company, I think, for way too little. And so eventually what happened is the original owner of Skullgirls just fired everybody. He just fired all the employees and shut it down, which, you know, at a certain level it seems like that was his only choice, because when you have your entire company saying we hate you and we want to get rid of you, you can either say, okay, I'm going to give up the company I own for some crazy reason, or I'm just going to, or you can say I'm going to fire everybody and own the company and own the intellectual property. But yeah, you can see actual Skullgirls 1 is just not here. Because they have been re-releasing, I guess, other updates for as a fighting game, which kind of makes some sense. I don't know why you specifically are seeing that much of a connection here. See, Indivisible here says it's being made from Lab Zero, the creators of the officially acclaimed, critically acclaimed Skullgirls 1. So maybe the employees, they did eventually go and form another company, and I don't know how, but it seems like they ended up letting Skullgirls go to that new other company. Or Lab Zero Games was the original company. And see, this is where I'm really confused. Then Lab Zero Games released Indivisible. And overall it's mostly positive, but it does have some problems, and that was always kind of the problem with Indivisible as a game. It's not a fighting game though, it's an RPG game. You can see the art style's a little different. Yeah, I wish I had a better article to really explain this because I'm not